the stream live?
It is live. It is live. I was just enable the chat. Don't enable the chat.
Okay.
I will just do that quickly. Okay. 17 watching now. 21 watching now. Okay. Live chat's up. 22 watching. Okay. I'm just gonna
By law, obviously, we have to run through the school budget every year, and it's the parents, according to the Schools Act, it's the parents that need to approve the budget. So we as the governing body, we've been involved in assisting prepare it. So the school finance team has prepared it, and the governing body has reviewed it to present to the parents. So we'll go through in high level what the details are. I'm going to just run through everything, then you guys can just save any questions you might have until the end. So as we go through each of the slides, just remember what you want to ask, and then we can address it at the end between Colin and myself. Okay, so a nice slogan we put there, or saying, use correctly a budget doesn't restrict you, it empowers you. So it's actually vital for the school in terms of what the strategy is or envisaged to be, that the budget speaks to that, and then we can carry out whatever improvements are necessary for the benefit of the kids and the whole school community. So that is what was kept in mind when we're preparing this. Okay, so the budget is more than just a series of numbers on a page, it is an embodiment of values. Okay, so the first item is we have to, as parents, we have to approve that school fees can be charged, and it has to be re-agreed each year. I assume that everyone here is agreeing to that. If we say that there are no school fees, it puts the school in a very difficult situation. You won't have enough teachers, you won't have enough resources. It's not a viable situation. So if there's no objections, I assume everyone here is in agreement that we approve that. Okay. The next part is approval of 38A remuneration. So that is basically where the governing body gives extra pay for certain items to government teachers. So the teachers at the school, some of them are employed by the government, some of them are employed by the governing body of the school. The Schools Act requires that if the governing body is going to pay the government teachers, that there has to be this Article 38A submission, and that must be approved by the parents. There is some detail later in the slideshow as to what is covered under that. It's not major items, it's not additional salaries, it's just reimbursing for certain things. Okay, so overall for our budget for 2026, the school fees budget consists of an income of about 13.3 million. That's after the sliding scales, foster children, discount, and bad debt is taken into consideration. So after all of those have been taken off, we left with budgeted to be left with 13.3 million. So there's obviously assumptions in that with relation to bad debts, etc. The school obviously takes all steps necessary to recover all the debt that it can. We also have additional income in the school that will bring the total income to about 14.3 million, and the expenditure is a total of just over 15 million, and about 51.5% of that is allocated to salaries. The average, we are a member of FEDSAS, which is an organisation for school governing bodies, and they distribute guidance on the budgets, and they did an analysis across many schools and what the norms are. And the average is that a school like ours would pay about 58 to 59% of their budget in salaries. Ours is sitting at 51.5%. Okay, this is just a breakdown of the income. So you can see total income 14.3 million, as said before. You can see the school fees that are mentioned. The government pays 310,000 of that, so really quite minor in comparison to the overall budget. And then there's other income of 674,000. Overall, this is just a pie chart showing the breakdown of the various expenses. So I'll leave that up just for a minute. I'll speak through it, but you can have a look and see where most of it is going. So obviously the biggest part of the pie is the salaries, as I've mentioned, 51.5%. If we look at some of the other bigger items, property expenses relating to the grounds is 7.9% at 1.2 million. We've got a admin expenses sitting at 1.26 million. Just want to look through here. The printing and photocopy, so that's agreements with the printers, the copies that we've got, and obviously the printing costs, 607,000. I'm not going to go through all of the others. I think I've highlighted the main ones. So you can have a look there. If there's any questions on any detail of any of those, just keep that in mind, and then we can answer questions on that afterwards. Okay, then we've got just a breakdown showing the hostel portion of the budget. So we keep track of the overall school budget, and we keep track of the hostel separately, looking at it like a separate business unit, just to make sure that things are managed there correctly. So it's not lumped in with everything else. But when we submit a budget to be approved and submitted to the Department of Education, everything is in one, and it comes down to one bottom line. So if we look at the hostel, the overall income is just about 3.3 million. That is boarding income of 1.4, other income of 1.1 million, and rent for some of the rooms coming in at 682,000. So personnel rent, so that some of the teachers are renting rooms. That is done at market rates. And then in terms of the expenses for the hostel, there's hostel staff, so their salaries are just over $1 million. That's about 39% of the overall budget. Food costs, about 789,000. The property costs for the hostel buildings, 493,000, and admin expenses of 264,000. So the total expenses at the hostel is 2.5 million. So that, when you add the school budget with the hostel budget, the budgeted income is 17.6 million, and the budgeted expenses is 17.6 million, with wouldn't quite call it a profit, breaking even at 1,600 Rand. Remember, a school is a non-profit organization, so it's not like we are trying to generate profit, but what fees are coming in, we're allocating it appropriately to spend in the right places. Okay, in terms of the school fees and pricing, so included in this budget is a 7% increase in school fees. So the overall school fees will be 26,650 for the year. Hostel fees we've kept unchanged at 0%, so that's 36,800 for the year. We have taken away transport to some of the outlying towns, and in light of that, decided to leave the hostel fees unchanged. The parents are going to have to arrange their own transport for those parents who are bringing their kids from wider areas. Okay, this is the payment options. I'm not going to go through this in detail, so you would have all been aware of this, the various options you have to pay school fees and the various discounts associated with each option. Okay, so that was a quick run through. Does anyone here have any questions? Yes, sir.
Sorry, I'm Roger Large, parent. Well, my kids are at school still. When you opened, you said our attendance and accepting the budget. Am I correct?
Yeah, it is. We need the parents' approval, so we've got parents that are attending online, and then obviously all of you here as the physical attendance. And the goal is to reach agreement and accept the budget as presented.
You also mentioned that we are non-profit organizations, so we don't make a profit.
Yes.
Because when we look at our town is made up of, I think, 80% unemployed people, and 20% here. I think the few that work, that are professionals, that have jobs, work at Eskom, and all the state
disagree.
You can disagree all you like. I'm just giving you my opinion as a father. And the other thing is, the hostel is quite a huge asset to the school.
Yes.
Right? And it doesn't make a profit. 1,000 rand or something.
The hostel itself does make a profit. What was the profit portion? Was it?
So, Roger, can I just come in there? The hostel is actually at the stage carrying the school a bit because of the marketing center contract that we have with the government. So if we only work on the school budget, we will actually have a short a deficit on the income, so that there will be an issue. So we're currently using the hostel to accommodate some of the expenditure of the school.
Yeah. There's about a 700,000 rand surplus budgeted for the hostel, which actually covers school expenses.
Yes, all right, fine. I just looked at that quickly, and from what you mentioned earlier on, the profit was showing 1,000 rand.
Yes.
The expenditure. The other thing is that due to the school fees so high, right, there's no extra classes given to the students. We as parents, we have to pay for mathematics extra classes. We have to pay for all extra classes. So that to me is a huge concern, because you can only take us to a certain level. I mean, you're going to be handing over a lot of parents, and you're going to obviously make the lawyers.
Yeah, there are extra classes that are given to pupils.
Sorry?
There are extra classes that are given to pupils. It's not the school's, it's actually not their responsibility to give classes after school hours, but they do.
What subjects are maths and science?
I know my daughter does accounting extra classes, the science, they have maths.
I'm surprised because we don't get any memos or anything whatsoever. Thank you for telling me. So yeah, that's about it.
Okay. I think what you can also have a look at, if you look at research, you can go and check other schools in the area. Our fees are not high compared to the others. And based on the stats that we have in terms of the subsidies that are given to underprivileged families, so you mentioning you're estimating about 80% unemployed. That is not what we see with the parents that are at our school. Not 80% of them can't pay school fees. There's a very small portion who qualify for a reduction of school fees. Most of the parents, they have an income that can substantiate that they have to pay the school fees, and that is by law. There's a certain calculation that is done. So in terms of what our parent base is, that 80% doesn't hold true. It's a very small percentage.
Okay, so we don't accept the budget today as parents. So what do we have to do? What document do we have to sign? Because when we attend the sign it.
We'll have a show of hands to say who approves and who doesn't, and then we can count. We'll have to check if there's quorum or not as well. But there will be a vote, and then you can approve or disapprove. Okay. Everything addressed on your side, Roger? Okay. Oh, sorry, he was first, the gentleman behind Roger.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for the presentation, but I just want to register my concern with regard to the attendance. I want to believe that you have a year calendar as an advice. You look around the other schools if dates are not clashing. Because I want to believe today most of the parents are down at Pioneer where they concern. So in the future, we request that if there is such a big event, because a budget meeting is a big event. So just look around and check if dates are not clashing. Secondly, I just want to check how many allocations do we have as a school, teacher allocation. Because if I look at the presentation, the bigger cake goes to salaries. And how does then the institution operate if a bigger portion service delivery?
The school service delivery is teaching, so that is to the teachers, so that's why most of it is going to them. And as I said, there's been benchmarking that is done, and our school is under the level of spending that has been benchmarked as normal for schools. So it is expected that most of it will go to salaries, because that is where the service is being provided. In terms of the numbers, we can tell you what is the governing body posts. Yeah. And it's also worked out based on the number of children and how many you need in a class. So we don't want 40 in a class. We try and keep it down to 30. So obviously if you're keeping the classes smaller, you need to have sufficient number of teachers for that. So Carden's just double checking the numbers there. Marianne, do you know the numbers for how many government teachers there are?
Yes, at this stage, we have, with the principal included, 27 posts from the department and 20 governing body posts.
Okay, for teaching staff. So 27 posts for government teachers and 20 for the teaching staff. And then the governing body also must then employ the admin staff that manage the and all the workers on the terrain, so for repairs and maintenance and the hostel staff. Okay, do you need more detail on that?
No, it suffices my concept. But one last thing. I believe there's a system or a policy, I don't know what to call it. There are those parents that can't pay the school fees.
Yes.
And they apply for not paying.
Yes.
How many are they? How is the procedure followed? How do you apply?
Okay.
Because on the presentation, it's not specific.
Yeah.
They are just giving us a
Can you
blanket amount.
The amounts that we budgeted for it. So that is a good question. And last year we appointed new attorneys for assisting with collections of school fees, and part of their service, they vet those forms for us. So they make sure if there is a parent that's claiming that they don't earn an income, so it might be a mother comes forward and says she doesn't have a job, she can't pay school fees. The attorneys go and double check, they check the father as well, they see whether he is earning an income, and a lot of the time these forms are sent in and they're trying to cover it under one parent, but the other parent is earning, and then those get rejected. So there's a very rigorous process that is undertaken, and those forms are rejected if the criteria are not met. So the attorneys are very, very good with checking up on all of that. And they're the ones who are following up on the school fees as well. Before it becomes bad debt, they make sure that the parents are aware that they're being monitored and must pay. I'm just trying to get the figure here for what we budgeted for those. So in the budget so far, there's about 3 million budgeted towards the slide, what we call the sliding scale. So that will be the discounts that are given on school fees for lower earners. What we've seen, so that is a budgeted amount. If we can get it in under that, then it's a bonus to the school, and that gets used back within the school. So for the current year, we are running below what the budget was for. So for the 2025 budget, we had a similar amount, but the attorneys that we appointed last year managed to bring that down significantly. So we're running under. I don't know if we can estimate what we think it would be this year. What was the budget last year?
2.9.
So for 2025, we had budgeted about 2.9 million, so a similar amount for those sliding scales. So far, those that have been approved are sitting at about 650,000. So that's about a quarter of, or less than a quarter of what we had budgeted, and I expect it to be the same for the next year. But we play on the safe side with that budget. Do you have any more queries on that? Okay, you have your questions answered.
Yeah, partly. Because I wanted maybe an answer that would say for this year, so many applied, so many approved, so many disapproved for
Okay.
whatever reasons.
That we don't have that data on hand. We'd have to extract that because that would be via the attorneys. So I think you'd have to contact via the admin office if you want us to try and get that information for you. Then if you get to Tony Mary and just say you want to get that information, then I can make sure that gets to you. And we should be able to get it from CBJ attorneys. Okay. Yes, ma'am, you had a question?
Good evening, everyone. All right, thank you for the opportunity. What I want to raise is I do not necessarily approve the 7% increase for the year. So being here for me, it was for me to raise that point to say, we don't, mostly here, we don't have this opportunity to ask it. But as much as we got this opportunity, even though I was late, sorry for that, I was there to put it there to the school to say, most of the parents we don't agree. How about it be democratic for us to vote as the parents, and you see how many parents approve the yearly increase of the school fees?
Yeah, so that is what this meeting is for. So if there was a discussion and you don't, and the parents all agree that you don't approve that increase, then we'd have to have a discussion around it and potentially rework the budget. So any decrease in that budget means we'd obviously cut expenses from somewhere else. And we'd be looking at probably maintenance type of things where we're saying, okay, we needed to budget money, for example, painting roofs to keep the buildings in order. Those are the sorts of things that end up having to be delayed if we reduce the school fees. So any change to that percentage will have a knock-on effect to say, what are we going to cut? And then that you'd have to agree on with us. We can't just say we're not going to pay as much school fees. You have to say, what are we going to cut from the budget? But we can have that discussion. So that will be part of the process. If we say, are we going to approve or not? Then if the parents aren't approving, then we can discuss that. So we'll have a show of hands after the question.